Aloha Ohana. I'm here at one of the statues of the great King Kamehameha. According to my research, there are four of these that were officially commissioned here on Earth. One here at the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C., and the remaining three are scattered across the islands of Hawaii. In this episode, I plan to make a journey from the east side Atlantic all the way to the Pacific Islands of the West in an attempt to locate the remaining three statues of the great King Kamehameha that rest on the islands of Hawaii. Here we go. Let's do it. Malihini in Hawaii. Upon landing, I wasted no time getting to the first statue, but in order to do that, I had to island hop from the Big Island to the state capital, Honolulu, which is a city on Oahu. I landed on King Kamehameha Day and was lucky to be able to catch a ceremony being performed in honor of the great king.
Aloha Kako. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to a celebration torchlight ceremony on June 10th.
Something I saw the members do I thought was pretty dope. One down, two more to go. While on the island of Oahu, I thought I might as well tour the island and explore the different sights to see. First up was the Polynesian Culture Center. This is a place that was established to preserve the history and culture of the Polynesian people. It was really cool to see the huge tikis that they have out front. I actually visited the Polynesian Culture Center a couple of times, and the next time I'm on Oahu, I plan to visit again for two reasons. One is for the dinner and luau that they have each evening. I tried to book a reservation while I was there, but the rep told me that the reservations fill up pretty fast, and in order to get a spot, I would have to book a reservation about a month in advance. The other reason is to meet the Culture Center's senior ambassador, whose name is Cop. From what I hear, Cop is a good guy who does a lot of positive work in the community, but he's also an artist and he sells his work at the Culture Center. Cop sounds like a really cool guy, and one day I would like to meet him and buy some of his art. Next up is Pearl Harbor. When I landed on Oahu, I was given a traveler's guide, and I think Pearl Harbor might have been first or second on the list of places to visit. While there, I bought a ticket to tour the battleship USS Missouri. This battleship is one of the most famous in the world because it's where Japanese officials signed the Instrument of Surrender, which ended World War II on September 2nd, 1945. The ship is currently stationed at Pearl Harbor, but the peace treaty was actually signed in Tokyo Bay. Byudo-in Buddhist Temple is located at the foot of Ko'olau Mountains in Kaneohe. When entering the temple grounds, visitors are encouraged to ring the bansho, sacred bell, using the shu moku. The deep tone of the bell is believed to bring about peace, tranquility, blessings, happiness, and long life. The bansho has its own separate building called the Kanetsukido. The temple is a very beautiful place and is actually a replica of the almost 1,000-year-old Byudo temple in Uji, Japan. On the inside walls of the temple, there are different symbols. I did a little research to try to figure out what they mean. This first symbol represents Soto, which is said to be the largest of the Zen Buddhist sets in Japan, and follows a method of quiet sitting and meditation known as Zazen, as a method of obtaining enlightenment. The Dharma chakra wheel is kind of complicated, but it basically represents the teachings of Buddha. Higashi Honwanji is a symbol of the Shin Buddhist set in Japan, which represents the Eastern temple of the original vow. Nishi Honwanji represents Western temple of the original vow. Nichiren is a branch of Mahayana Buddhism. Izumo Taisha represents an important shrine in Japan. Tenreikyo is a religion that was founded on October 26, 1838 by a woman named Nakayama Miki, also known as Oya-sama. Jodo, another set of Buddhism. Shingon is one of the major schools of Buddhism in Japan. And then there's the Christian cross, which basically represents the truth. In the temple, there's also a memorial for Bishop Hozen Fukuhara, who was a caretaker of the temple. From what I saw online, Reverend Fukuhara was born in Kawakita, Japan, but lived and died in Iwa Beach. I have a story to tell about my experience while visiting Iwa Beach, but I'll get to that in just a moment. Something interesting that I read about Bishop Hozen was that he had the ability to talk to the birds, and they will fly down to eat food from his hand. Fascinating. Back to my story about Iwa Beach. I decided to do my Supreme Kai ritual here, but the night before, I had kind of a scary experience. I was parked in a lot on the side of the road around midnight, and I was considering taking a nap because I was kind of tired from traveling all day. Just as I started to relax, I saw an elderly man who appeared to be of Asian descent riding a bike down the street towards me. As he slowly got closer and closer, I felt a strong sense of caution, almost like his energy was warning me of danger. I couldn't ignore the feeling that I got from him as he passed by. After he disappeared into the darkness, something told me to do a Google search for a list of dangerous parts on Oahu, and sure enough, Iwa Beach was on the list. Shortly afterwards, a gang of young males came speeding down the street on loud motorbikes. It was at least 4 that I remember counting at first, and I don't know if they noticed me sitting in my car as they passed, but I sat for maybe just a couple of minutes, and I noticed more motorbikes pass by again. I looked at my rearview mirror and noticed that they had stopped and turned around. My body instantly went into fight or flight mode. As I suspected, I was in some sort of gang turf, so I started my car and pulled off. As I drove down the street, I saw the lights from their bikes following behind me. They caught up with me as I stopped at the stop sign at the end of the street, praying that I would not have to hit anyone with my car. The rest of the street was a main road, and as I drove from the stop sign, I noticed the gang go in a different direction. I was so thankful that things did not get ugly that night. So I would say that my story of my experience on Iwa Beach has a happy ending. Further north in Kaina, there's the US Space Force Station. It's a government restricted area, so I couldn't go in, but it looked very interesting. Here at China Walls, it seems like this is a spot where a lot of young people like to hang out. I believe this is a statue of Duke Kahanamoku, known as the father of modern day surfing. This is off the shore of Ala Beach, where I chose to do part of a ritual experiment that I'll explain in just a moment. But first, I noticed this spot that had graffiti on the wall, and I thought it either spelled assaulter or as altar, even though altar is spelled with an A. I chose to go with the latter and left an offering. Now, for my ritual experiment, I heard that if you leave something of value when you travel somewhere, that you form an energy connection. So I left a piece of rose quartz, which is a semi precious stone that represents love. I'll explain more about the experiment later. Just saying aloha to Ala Moana. This is one of the high altitude points in the residential area. It seemed like a very nice place to live. Quiet streets, not a lot of traffic. Seems like a great spot if you wanted to start a family and raise kids. I don't remember what shore this particular high point is overlooking, but I believe that is Waikiki Beach off in the distance. Very beautiful. Here at Kahala Mall, from what I hear, Kahala is one of the richer parts of Oahu. It was interesting to visit a mall in Hawaii. I saw something that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else before. Birds roaming freely in the mall. It was cute, very earthy. Here's another one in the food court. I felt sorry for this one because I noticed it was injured. As I mentioned, Kahala is one of the richer parts of Hawaii, and they have some very nice real estate here as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this part is Hawaii Kai. If I decided to move to Hawaii, this will be one of the places that I would consider, partially because I just like saying Hawaii Kai. But the community also has some pretty nice real estate as well. I believe this was at Waimea Falls. This is the legacy of the royal rulers of Hawaii, beginning with Peia, King Kamehameha I, then going to King Kamehameha's 2, 3, 4, and 5, whose birth names were Liho Liho, Kiawe Kioli, Alexander, and Lot, respectively. Then there's King Lunalilo, King Kalakaua, then finally Queen Lileuo Kalani. For anyone who may be interested, there's a book written by Queen Lileuo Kalani, who was the last sovereign monarch of the Hawaiian Kingdom. In her book, the queen tells her story of growing up in Hawaii, becoming queen of Hawaii, and the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Here at Queen Emma's summer palace, Queen Emma was of interest to me, partially because Emma was the name of my great great grandmother, but also because she was mentioned in Queen Lileuo Kalani's book. Queen Emma was the wife of King Kamehameha IV and later became a candidate to rule as Queen of Hawaii. She was very beautiful, and although she was known as the People's Queen, I remember reading somewhere that she was said to be quote unquote not Hawaiian enough, and King Kalakaua was elected instead. There are tours hosted at the Summer Palace, but I arrived outside of the time window, so I just walked around the outer courts. Here are a few pictures of the inside that I found online. Like Like Highway, one of the main highways that passes through the Ko'olau Mountain, was named after Princess Like Like, who was also mentioned in Queen Lileuo Kalani's book. I noticed that many of the important figures in Hawaiian history have roadways named after them. Here at the Royal Hawaiian on Kalakaua Ave, off the shore of Waikiki, I only drove past, but if I visit Oahu again, this will be a place that I would like to lodge for at least a night, just to have the experience of sleeping at the Royal Hawaiian. I was able to find some pictures of the inner parts online. This is random, but I thought this bird was the nene, which is designated as the official state bird of Hawaii, but I think it's actually called a karu egret. They were all over the island, making a very distinct sound, almost like Morse code for birds. Shifting gears from the nene, this was probably the loudest Walmart that I shopped at in Hawaii. I think they were doing a fundraiser for a charity. Before departing from Oahu, I stopped at a place called the Twin Fin and Tiki's. I was in search for something I heard of called a Kamehameha lemonade, but I think that may have just been something made up for an episode of Hawaii Five-0. It was still cool to see all of the life-size Tiki's. While on Oahu, I thought of a movie concept that I titled Vampires in Hawaii, Haunting from Honolulu. It's a work in progress. Back to the Big Island and search for the remaining 2 statues of the great King Kamehameha. I was able to find one of the statues in the town of Kapa'au on the north side of Kohala. I was able to find the last statue in Hilo, which is on the eastern side of the Big Island. Something interesting happened at the last statue. As I approached it, a bird landed on the head of the statue and began to chirp as if it was trying to say something. I tried my best to be respectful to the land and for any spirits that may have been present. With the 4th statue of the great King Kamehameha being located, my treasure hunt was complete. I still had some extra time before I had to part ways with the island, so I decided to visit a few more tourist attractions. This next site is a place called Pu'uko'ola Eau. An Eau is a temple or shrine that is consecrated as a sacred place where mana or divine energy is transferred and concentrated. Pu'uko'ola translates to temple on the hill of the well. This Eau is particularly important because it was erected after one of King Kamehameha's elite kahunas advised him to do so, and it was dedicated to his family's war god, Kuka Ilimoku, to help him on his conquest to conquer the islands. This site is said to be where one of the last battles to unite the islands took place. I've heard the story told in multiple ways, but there are some things that remain constant in every version. In every version, there's a prophecy that a warrior king will be born and he will unite all of the kingdoms of Hawaii. Eliyah was born and he was believed to be the child of that prophecy. The other tribal chiefs heard of his birth in order for him to be assassinated in his youth. Eliyah's caretakers knew of this plot, so they hid him until he was old enough and well trained to defend himself. Some say he got the name Kamehameha from one of his elite kahunas. Others say it came to him through meditation. Either way, Kamehameha lived to become an adult and began his island conquering conquest. Every version of the story also tells of a final battle between King Kamehameha and his cousin, King Keaoua. I've heard the story told multiple ways, but there are certain key elements that remain constant. There was the prophecy, there was the war between the two cousins, and in the end, there will be a chosen one, and the other will be the human sacrifice. In the end, King Kamehameha became the chosen king to fulfill the prophecy, and his cousin, King Keaoua, became the human sacrifice. It was here at Pu'uko'ola where King Keaoua was sacrificed to Ku'uka-Ilimoku. After leaving Pu'uko'ola Eau, I made my way to a place called Vau Akua, which translates to Realm of the Gods. Vau Akua sits at the top of Mount Mauna Kea, which can be seen off in the distance. I believe that it's actually an inactive volcano, and it seemed to be constantly shrouded by clouds. In ancient times, this sacred place was forbidden to all except of the highest chiefs and priests. Knowing this background information, and being just a mere human about to enter the realm of the gods, I was a little intimidated, but my visit got a bit scarier. As I made my way up the mountain, I noticed that the road was taking me higher into the clouds, and I was beginning to see less and less car traffic. The further I went, the more foggier the road became, until I could barely see the road ahead of me. I couldn't shake the feeling of being surrounded by some sort of haunting presence. I was traveling alone, and a part of me wanted to abandon this mission out of fear of the worst that may happen on my way up the mountain. The clouds got so thick that I couldn't see the road ahead of me, and that's when things really got scary. I reached a point in the road where I stopped seeing oncoming traffic, and I began to approach an enormous dark figure. I feared that it was a trans-dimensional dark portal that had opened to devour me with its bone-crushing gravitational force, but it ended up just being a huge tree at the bend in the road. I finally made it to the top of the mountain, which was actually above the clouds. It was dark by the time I made it to the top, and I could see so many stars in the sky. It was breathtaking. Speaking of breathtaking, the top of Mauna Kea is said to have about 40% less oxygen and less air pressure, and I definitely noticed something abnormally different from being in that atmosphere. I wish I had gotten more footage, but my camera couldn't pick up on the night sky. While on the Big Island, I had the opportunity to witness a live volcano eruption at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Behind me is a night shot of the volcano Kilauea erupting. This became even more interesting when I received a notification that Kilauea actually started erupting on June 7th. June 7th was significant because it's my friend Keone's birthday. Keone is sister of Kalani from episode 2, and one of the reasons why I started the Ohana project. I thought this was very special, so shout out to Keone. This is one of my favorite shots at Akaka Falls. Just soaking in the experience. One of the last places that I visited on the Big Island was a shamanic retreat called Moesha Halepule. Moesha Halepule is located in a place called Ke Allah Ke Kua, which translates to Pathway of the God. I originally signed up for their Have Aka sacred plant ceremony, but there's a 2-person minimum and I was alone, so I instead did the shamanic deep dive. During the deep dive session, the shaman told me that I had to find God within and that I needed to do something that was referred to as die the shaman's death. I'm still not 100% sure what that means, but I think it has something to do with the dissolution of my personal ego. We also went over something called medicine animals, which are supposed to be guides that aid us along our spiritual journeys. I had to randomly pick 5 cards from a deck, and mine were bat, squirrel, skunk, hummingbird, and spider. Then we looked into a book to reference the meaning of each medicine animal. I was kind of hoping for snake and scorpion, but that's another story for another time. Aloha to Dr. ZZ and Shaman Jack. This is the compound that I stayed in while on the Big Island. Something really cool about this place was that it was completely off-grid. The electricity was from solar power, and the plumbing was sourced from recycled rainwater. The only major downside that I had to this place was that the electricity was shut off around 11 o'clock, so I had to be finished with charging everything electronic by then. In the background, there's a species of creature that I later found out was called the coqui frog. After a while, the sound that they made started to have an undeniable effect on my psyche. It was like being placed in a hypnotic trance. I felt like I was surrounded by family, and each family member was connected to one of the many stars in the sky. I turned my car off and just sat for a bit to resonate with the energy of the coqui frogs. Here's a shot off the balcony in the daytime. Here's the inside of the cabin. I spoke with the owner and he said he built it himself. I was quite impressed. I don't know what the other cabins next door to mine look like on the inside, but I would say mine was perfect for a single traveler, and I'll show you why in just a bit. This place was definitely for the adventurer. These stairs here were more like a ladder to the upper level. Here we have the bed, TV, and the reason why I said this was perfect for a single traveler. As you can see, the toilet has no privacy. But again, this place was ideal for the adventurer. It was also the cheapest place that I could find. I don't know what the going rate is now, but when I made my reservation, it was about $25 a night. Good deal, if you ask me. This is me leaving the compound for the very last time. With all 4 Kamehameha statues located, my adventure was complete and it was time for me to head back home. Aloha, Hawaii. I'm really going to miss you. One last thing to do before I leave. Remember back when I said I was doing an experiment? This part of the experiment was done in a place called Ale Mau Mau, which is not far from the volcano Kilauea, and is said to be home of the Hawaiian goddess Pele. My intention in this experiment is to open the energy portal and form a love connection between the island of Hawaii and where I live back home. My goal here is to leave 5 crystal quartz stones representing the 5 Kamehamehas and 1 rose quartz stone in remembrance of the last sovereign queen of Hawaii, Lileu'o Kalani. I'm wishing for good luck here. Did the experiment actually work? I guess only time will tell. A few months after returning home, I decided to do a fire ritual to close out the final episode for chapter 2 of Ohana. A few days after performing the ritual, I had a dream of being at a huge bonfire in Hawaii. I assumed I was in Hawaii because I was surrounded by people who looked Hawaiian. My neighbor's mom, who was also from Hawaii, was at the ceremony sitting across from me. A huge kahuna spirit came down from the sky and condensed itself into an almost human-like form. It began to whisper into my neighbor's mom's ear. It said something along the lines of, "What would you do if that was your man?" The kahuna was referring to me. My neighbor's mom then stood up and began to do a dance that looked very similar to Hawaiian hula. It was very magical and hypnotic, almost like she was casting a spell on me with her movements. I don't remember what happened after that, but when I woke up, I texted my neighbor and told her about the dream that I had. She replied and told me that her mom was requesting prayers for the people of Maui. I didn't know what was happening at first, but after doing a Google search for what's happening in Maui, I saw that wildfires had been devastating the island since the night before. I was completely in awe. There's a controversial book written about the Maui wildfires entitled Fire and Fury by Dr. Miles Stones. It's said to be controversial because it was published right around the same time the Maui wildfires were still happening. Thoughts and prayers going out to the people of Hawaii, Lahaina, and other parts of Maui that were affected. I'll be praying for things to get better. This Ohana pathworking has been amazing thus far, to say the least, and this portion concludes chapter 3 of this awesome journey. I'm going to close this episode with the footage from the fire ceremony that I performed after returning home from Hawaii. Mahalo. Thank you for tuning in and following me on this amazing spiritual journey. Stay tuned, and until next time, aloha.